Well, let's talk now to Mark Shanahan, who's Associate Professor of Politics at the University of Surrey. Welcome back to the programme, Mark. So we've had within the past hour or so the UK's Finance Minister, Kwasi Kwarteng, standing up at his party's conference and admitting that he got cutting the top rate of tax wrong. He described the reaction to what happened as a little turbulence, but will he and his party be forgiven for this?
Probably not, on two fronts. I mean, we have quite some time before they have to go to the country for a general election. But there hasn't exactly been a massive boost to the markets today or to the pound today. There's been some upward movement following the reversal of the 45% tax cut. But the public are considerably worried now as to whether they can trust this Conservative government. It's not just this 45p tax rate. It's a whole uncosted budget that was delivered to the public as a bit of a surprise a week last Friday and still hasn't been costed and doesn't look as though it's going to be costed for another month and a half. And it looks as though there are going to be cuts and quite jagged cuts to public spending. And that never goes down particularly well with the public. So certainly the media, the public, and even the markets are not in particularly forgiving mood yet.
So where does this U-turn leave this government's economic policy?
Pretty much on life support at the moment. The next couple of days at conference are going to be very, very interesting. This is when the Conservative Party comes together every year with a new leader and a new chancellor. This should have been the honeymoon. This should have been the rousing speeches full of good news, but it doesn't feel like that at all. The mood is very subdued. The room is half empty. They're now even talking about bussing actors and actresses in to fill the seats for the new Prime Minister's speech. This is a Conservative Party that's been in power for 12 years. This was going to be their rabbit out of a hat. It looks like a very right-wing, libertarian economic policy, which hasn't even landed particularly well with their own party.
So what lesson can other governments from around the world learn from this?
Don't spring surprises. So the markets hate surprises. They don't like uncertainty. So to come out with, actually it was policies that had been trailed fairly heavily during the Conservative leadership campaign, but then to land them in a supercharged way without saying how they were going to be paid for really did spook everybody. It's left the government looking relatively incompetent. They have to now recover quickly from that. And for any other governments around the world, take this as an object lesson in how not to sell in a new economic policy.
So you say it's left them looking relatively incompetent. Can they recover from this?
Of course they can. They've got a near 80-seat majority in Parliament. They don't need to go to the country, but they have to act quickly, rather more pragmatically than the ideological spin that we've seen for the last 10 days, and perhaps with a little bit more humility than Kwasi Kwarteng, who is a very, very bright guy. He is super, uber self-confident, but that maybe just tipped over into arrogance in the last 10 days or so. He's been brought back down to earth by this reversal of that top-rate tax policy. As he goes through and explains a lot of the other economic changes, everything from childcare to housing policy, he's going to have to be rather more in listening mode than in the kind of directive, this is how it's going to be, we're going to stick the course mode that he's been in up until now. Liz Truss just has to show leadership. We really haven't seen that so far.
Mark Shanahan from the University of Surrey, thanks very much indeed for talking to us today.